Alright, guys, so we're slowly reaching the end of 2018, and what a crazy year this year has been. I'm always going to look back at this year for like reference, or for things that I've learned this year that this year alone is just crazy. Whether it's things that happen in around the world or things in general just happened around me. Like it's been a crazy year, but at the same time, it's been an okay year, both the best and the worst year of my life, I'd say. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about my top 10 least favorite movies of this year, or in other words, my top 10 worst movies of the year. The reason why I want to say least favorite, though, is because there are some movies on this list that I know you guys are going to disagree on with, and that's fine because I know a lot of you guys like these movies, some of these movies, but for me, a lot of these movies just did not work at all for me. But if you guys like these movies, tell me in the comment section which ones you actually liked out of my worst list or my honorable mentions, which I'm about to give out right now. But that's a good thing about movies. If you guys disagree, that's fine. You guys have your own opinion, and that's awesome, honestly. So other than that, let's move on to my honorable mentions. Movies that could have made the cut but did not make the cut because I've seen 10 other worse movies that were much worse than these. The Darkest Minds. Not a good movie, of course. Nutcracker in Four Realms should have been an okay movie. It was not a good movie, though. The movie was, visually stunning, though, so I'll give it that. Early Man, what a boring Aardman animation movie. I thought I was gonna love this movie. I just did not like it. I'm sorry, guys. Sherlock Gnomes. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it's not on the top 10 list though. So yeah, Mortal Engines, Hunter Killer, which I actually saw in theaters a few weeks ago at my discount theater here in town. I just did not bother. I just did not bother to do a review or movie day for that because I just didn't feel like talking about it. Nobody's Fool, The Cloverfield Paradox. I actually liked this movie at first, but then the more I watch it, not the more I watch it, the more I think about it, the more I dislike it. Mile 22 should have been a movie that I would have enjoyed if it was better done, but I'm sorry, guys. Peter Berg really failed me this time. I Feel Pretty. Amy Schumer shouldn't be allowed to do movies anymore, in my opinion. Bad Times at the El Royale. A lot of you guys love this movie, and that's fine. But a lot of people did not like this movie, and I'm a part of that majority who just did not like this movie at all. I just thought the movie was a sloppy mess throughout, and I just did not like what they did with this movie at all. And I was looking forward to this movie, just being honest with you guys. My last honorable mention, another movie that a lot of you guys love, and I did not like at all. Hereditary. I'm sorry, guys. This movie was just pretentious as hell. I just couldn't deal with this movie. I almost walked out of this movie. I did not, though. Just do the review for you guys. But I thought I was really gonna like this movie. I just didn't. But I'll give Bad Times at the El Royale and Hereditary the benefit of the doubt for being better than 10 of the movies on my top 10 list. Of course, at least because they're well-made movies, but I just did not like them. But anyways, let's move on to my top 10 worst movies of 2018. Starting off with number 10, a horror movie that I'm not surprised is actually here, to be honest with you. The Nun. The Nun just has nothing to offer when it comes to the horror genre. I've just seen so many mainstream horror movies that actually came out to be good. I mean, let's take a look at last year. Blumhouse proved of us with Split, Get Out, especially Get Out, Happy Death Day, and Warner Brothers also proved us that they can make a big horror movie that is actually good. I thought it was a movie that was really good, and it did not rely on jump scares to actually make the audience kind of terrified. It relied on the creepy imagery, and that's what I like about horror movies. The Nun, though, I don't even know if they were trying here because there's nothing about this movie that's scary at all. Whether it's the imagery or the jump scares, which I don't even think that they tried with, to be honest with you. And the story is just so boring, so bland. Nothing happens in this movie. It just doesn't help that the characters are not interesting at all either. The Nun, it's a movie that I was sort of looking forward to, but I did not like it. And I don't even know why The Conjuring is a franchise, to be honest with you. The first one was good. I did not like the second one. I hated Annabelle. Annabelle Creation, though, was okay. The Nun, though, is not good, and I'm scared for Annabelle 3. Moving on to number 9, The Strangers, Pray at Night. Wow, one of the most stupidest movies that I have ever seen in my lifetime. And I mean that mainly because I just don't know what they were trying to do with this movie at all. And this movie was made on small budget, and I know that, but there's just so many things about this movie that I just did not like. Whether it's the story, which is a story that I've seen millions of times done better in other slasher movies, or the absolutely terrible characters in this movie. They're just the generic horror movie characters that they should not be doing that, but they actually do it. They're just idiots all around. And Strangers Prey at Night is no different than just a terrible slasher movie. As for my 8th least favorite movie of the year, this is a movie that some of you guys kind of enjoyed. Some of you guys did not like this movie, but Action Point. My friend Andrew actually watches my reviews, obviously, and he saw that I did not like this movie, but he still watched it himself. He's like, you know what? I kind of like this movie, and I was like, that's fine. I see that there's an audience for this movie, and I respect that. And I should have been part of that audience, but Action Point is just one of those comedies that is just so unfunny. It's actually it started to become a pain to even watch. And Action Point, Johnny Knoxville knows much better than this. The story was just extremely boring, and this is such a good concept, which is such a shame, because I just thought that they could have done so much more with this movie, so much potential that this movie had, but in the end, it just became one of the most boring comedies of this year. On with my 7th worst movie of this year, God's Not Dead, A Light in the Darkness. I don't even know why this is a trilogy to begin with. I thought that they already did enough with that first movie, and I kind of enjoy that first movie, being honest with you guys, but they just do way too much with this movie. It just, in the end, it's basically a huge middle finger to anyone who's not Christian, and I think that that's something that you did not want to do with a movie, a faith-based movie like God's Not Dead. I just think this movie got the whole concept wrong, and the story is just so bad it actually ends up being laughably hilarious at points. And the acting, I don't even know how these people are actors, to be honest with you. I don't know what else to say about this movie other than it's not good. As for my 6th least favorite movie of this year, this is a movie that I know a lot of you guys really liked. I hated this movie, Assassination Nation. What's so good about this movie? Is there something that I'm missing? Because it feels like the story of this movie is just not all over the place, but I just don't think the story here is clear enough to understand. And I hated every character in this movie. By the end, I just wanted every character dead, and I don't like that feeling about movies. In the end, I just want to end up cheering for someone, and there's just no one that I ended up cheering for in Assassination Nation, because all the characters are just so unlikable that I just hated every bit of these characters. And this is a movie that I think that they cared more about the style rather than the story, because this is a very good looking movie, but the story itself, I don't see it. I don't know what's so good about this movie. So now we're getting to my top 5 least favorite movies of the year, and these are the worst of the worst. And joining my number 5 just yesterday when I watched this movie in theaters, Holmes and Watson. Holmes and Watson is not only probably the worst comedy of the year, but one of the worst comedies of the decade. There's nothing funny about this movie. It's just one of those poorly done spoof parodies that just don't work at all. I did not like any character in this movie except for John C. Reilly. He was the only character that I liked in this movie. And it's a shame because I like Will Ferrell, but I just don't like when Will Ferrell is in these type of roles. And I just found him so unfunny in this movie. And not only that, but this movie was just, it was boring. I felt bored. I wanted to walk out of this movie about 30 minutes in because of how bad and bland this movie actually was. And again, the one word that I used to describe this movie in my review was brain dead. And this movie is most fucking definitely brain dead. Now for my 4th least favorite movie of the year. And we're getting to the real stinkers here, like half a star out of 5 top movies. Death of a Nation. I don't even know why Dinesh D'Souza is even making movies anymore. He's obviously one of the worst filmmakers of the past decade, and he just can't make a good documentary. And not only that, it's not only the documentary aspect that I just hated about this movie. They actually tried to do some scenes like recreating history in this movie with some, like, for example, they do one with Abraham Lincoln, and not only is the movie like really cheaply made, and the makeup on that guy who's supposedly Lincoln, but they're just bad actors in general, and it just feels like they're kind of making a spoof out of history, and I hated this movie. This movie just gives you so many, I'd say, wrong facts about, and I'm not a big person when it comes to politicians or anything, but this movie just, apparently Democrats are racist in this movie, and what? I did. I'm sorry. Definition: worst documentary of the year. So for my third least favorite movie of the year, this is a pain in the ass to watch. This movie took me about 3 weeks to finish. Of course, I was streaming it in my room, and it took me about 3 weeks to finish. And that movie is Slice. Slice was a movie that I was actually looking forward to, and this movie had everything. It had the comedy, it had the horror aspect, it had the very ununique type of concept that it was original. I like that about this movie. The story was terrible when it was actually portrayed in the actual movie, and the actors, Chance the Rapper, he he was okay in this movie. He just didn't have much to do. Zazie Beetz was also in this movie, and I did not like her at all. Every character in this movie, except for Chance the Rapper, is just so unlikable, and it just doesn't help that the story just does nothing. And it's just one of the worst told stories of the year, I'd say. As for my second least favorite movie of the year, and I know I give this movie like a D or a D plus, but then the more I think about it, the more I fucking hate this movie. Winchester. What a fucking drag to watch this movie. This movie is an hour and a half long, and this movie felt like it was 5 fucking hours long. Probably the best part about watching this movie in theaters is that we had these girls like 3 rows away from us, like vaping, and you just see the smoke just kind of come in contact with the screen. That was probably the most entertaining thing that I got out of when I was watching this movie. This movie was just so boring, and it just did nothing. They tried to do this weird story, this weird supernatural story that kind of tried to connect Ghost into the movie, and it did not work at all. And it's just probably, I'd say this is the most dual horror movie of the year. But of course, we got my number one worst movie of the year. And my number one worst movie of the year is the worst movie that I have ever seen. And I stand by that. Slender Man. Slender Man is a movie that's 7 or 6 years too late. Yet, they had all this time. Yet, it's just a terrible movie all around. I did not like any of the actors in this movie, any of the characters. The story just isn't good at all. And then Slender Man, he's only in this movie for like less than 10 minutes, and he's the draw of this movie. He's the reason why you have audiences in the first place. And this movie just does everything that a horror movie shouldn't, and it gets it all wrong. And Slender Man is just probably it's obviously the worst movie I've ever seen, so this is the worst horror movie that I've ever seen as well. And Slender Man, I'm just getting, I feel like my brain cells are dying just thinking about these movies, or just talking about them in general. But nothing more like Slender Man. Slender Man, I almost walked out 15 minutes into this movie, but I stayed because I had about 6 friends over watching this movie with me. They all hated it as well, so I think it would have been better if we just should have walked out and we should have watched The Meg instead that night. But there it is, guys. My top 10 least favorite movies of this year. What a shit year has this been for some movies that should have been pretty good. But anyways, guys, that's my top 10 least favorite movies of this year. And obviously, I just hated these movies all around. There's just nothing about these movies that I liked, especially like the last 5 movies. And it's a shame because I think that some of these movies should have been okay. The Nun should have been okay. Holmes and Watson should have been okay. Winchester should have been okay as well. But the other movies, I don't know. I'm done talking about these movies for good. I'm never gonna talk about these movies ever again, and I love that. But anyways, which ones do you guys agree on with me for my top 10 worst movies of the year? And which ones do you guys disagree on with me? Was I missing any movies? I'm curious. What do you guys think about it? As always, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.